Hey everyone, Nicole Duelli here. Thank you for joining me. I'm here with Canadians for Homeopathy to just answer another homeopathic question. And today the question is what to do when arnica doesn't work. Now, arnica is such a lovely remedy. If you've ever used it, you'll know it works little miracles sometimes when you've injured yourself. It's helps ease pain, shortens healing time if you've had like a bump to the head. It's the first remedy after being out gardening or hiking too long, after a marathon run, even after surgery. Arnica is the first remedy to think of. Now, I've heard some people say that it is an anti inflammatory remedy, and it is for sure an anti inflammatory remedy. However, it isn't quite that simple in homeopathy. It only works as an anti inflammatory remedy if the symptom picture fits. So it's not like a Tylenol or like an ibuprofen that basically works across the board for any inflammation. It only works if the symptoms fit. That's true to homeopathic fashion. So even though I would definitely recommend Arnica montana 30CH after every injury before even the symptoms start to develop, if you find after a few doses of the remedy you're really not feeling any better, then it's time to reevaluate. Look at some other remedies possibly, or we'll talk about some other possibilities. So, first, before we do anything, it's a good idea to check the symptoms. There's clear symptom pictures for different remedies. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit more about arnica. I'm going to tell you about bryonia, and I'm going to tell you about rust talk so you know how to tell those different remedies apart. And of course, also when to see a homeopath if necessary. Now, if you're taking arnica, it's working, the pain is better, go ahead and keep using it. Don't switch to another remedy unless the remedy stops working. Once you're 90% better, you want to stop the remedy altogether. Now, whoops, excuse me. Now, arnica, just looking at my notes here. So when arnica the symptom picture of arnica is bruised, aching, pain, soreness. The person who needs arnica isn't going to want to get up and move around a lot, and if they do, they're going to feel worse. So resting helps the injured part. If it's a swollen ankle or a sprained ankle, there will be swelling. You might feel better with icing it. Those are all, they all fit the symptom picture of arnica. If the accident has been a really big accident, then it's quite possible that the person might be in a bit of a shock. They'll say, "Oh, I'm fine, don't worry about it," but you can tell they're not totally okay. Arnica is great. It will help the body, help the person get back into their body and also help ease the pain and ease the symptoms. So you want to continue with the arnica then. Let's see. So the other thing I want to say about arnica is make sure that you do rest after taking arnica. I've had the personal experience of spraining my ankle, just a light sprain, but enough that it was swollen, not feeling well. I took a few doses of arnica. The swelling went away. I felt amazing. I thought it was fine. And I decided to go on a run a little bit too early. And within seconds of starting to run, I noticed, wow, I still have a sprain. And so I had to stop, go back to taking the arnica. And so, yeah, my advice always after taking arnica is to rest, rest, rest. Okay, so let's say you've taken the arnica, you're not feeling really all that much better. In fact, maybe even the symptoms have ramped up. You're actually feeling worse. Now the pain is stitching, it's sharp, it's intense. Every movement hurts. Even moving another part of the body will hurt that injured part. The person just wants to lie absolutely still or stay absolutely still. If it's affected their mood, they're going to be grumpy. If you question them, they're going to answer with one word answers. They still might want to put ice on it, but basically they're very, very sore and painful. I happened to have a sore back one day when I went into a very typical bryonia state. I didn't know it at the time. I was giving myself every remedy under the sun as a homeopath. You'd think I could, treat myself, but when you're in a lot of pain, I guess it's really hard, as I learned. I could hardly move across the living room. The pain in the back was so bad. And all I could do was just lie on my back. And I phoned my homeopath. She gave me bryonia. And within a very short time, it was like a miracle. I was so much better. So within hours, I felt an improvement with the bryonia, even though it was so, so bad. So it's quite amazing what the body can do when it's given the right information to heal itself. Okay, so you get the picture of bryonia, you get the picture of arnica. The other thing about arnica I forgot to mention is when a person is injured and they're in kind of an arnica state, or they have that picture of arnica, they don't want to be touched. They are very sensitive to someone coming too close and jarring them because that might hurt them. That's typical for arnica. Bryonia, on the other hand, is going to want to tightly bind that part. So actually, if it's a swollen ankle or a sprained ankle, like binding it tightly will actually help them feel better, because it's immobilizing the joint basically. All right, the third remedy that I want to talk about today is Rust toxicodendron. I've used this remedy so much for injuries. It's one of those really fabulous remedies for especially back pains, or any sprain after arnica, when arnica isn't really working and the symptoms are totally different. You won't miss Rust tox. Even if you're treating an animal, same with bryonia, you won't miss an arnica or a bryonia animal because the symptoms are so clear. The person or the animal who needs arnica may still be getting up and moving around. The animal who needs bryonia can barely move. Now, Rust tox is totally different. The symptom picture is maybe they can barely get out of bed, barely get up from a seat, and they're really having trouble getting going. But once they get up and they get moving, they're amazing. Or maybe not amazing because they're injured, but they're much, much better. And they may not even so much notice it as they're up and about during the day. But as soon as they sit down, or as soon as they lie down at night, they sort of get rusty and their muscles seize up. They get very, very sore and achy, and they are going to be restless. They're going to be tossing and turning and changing positions. Now, for a person who needs Rust toxicodendron, unlike arnica and bryonia, they're going to want to have heat. Actually, heat makes them feel better. If they're in the shower, they kind of limber up, or they want to put a heating pad on their back if they happen to need arnica for a back pain. Rust tox for a back pain. Now, I have a great example of Rust tox. One of my students, I was teaching like live, not online. And one of my students in the classroom, she just could not sit still. She had to keep getting up, moving around, going to the washroom, stretching. And she apologized at the break and said, I just have this really sore back. I cannot sit still. As soon as I do, it just kind of seizes up and it gets really, really sore. And I said, I know what remedy you need, Rust tox. And again, by the next time I saw her in class, she was already feeling much better, and her back was feeling much better. Now, the other thing I want to say about arnica or any of these remedies is when they don't seem to be working, always go and get a diagnosis. I have had so many times when someone has needed a diagnosis. For instance, I'm sure I've told this story before. My daughter injured her hand going whitewater rafting, And Arnica was helping, but then she needed to keep taking it. And after a couple days, I said, you have to go and get an x-ray. And she said, oh, it's not that swollen. It's probably not broken. I'm using it. And I've heard that time and time again from people who don't think they have a fracture. And then they go and get it x-rayed and it is a fracture. And so often with a fracture, it needs to be immobilized. And so in her case, she needed a cast. And so the Arnica was still helping with the pain and healing, but she needed the cast. And obviously the diagnosis to ensure it was the right remedy. I can remember another time when I had a client actually who had a tendon tear, an Achilles tendon tear, very, very painful. He was using Arnica. This is a perfect example of when Arnica doesn't work. He was using Arnica actually in quite a high potency. He felt confident with homeopathy, so he was using a 200, and it was helping in the beginning a lot with the pain. And then all of a sudden it just wasn't working anymore. In fact, he was actually feeling worse and worse. And after I spoke to him, I said, you have to stop the Arnica. And so we stopped the Arnica. We switched him to a remedy called Ruta gravulans, in a lower potency, in a 30C potency, and had him repeat that. Ruta happens to be very good for tendon injuries. Rust tox can be too, but Ruta is kind of the classic tendon injury remedy for tennis elbow or what have you. Another perfect example for when you don't use Arnica. So maybe good in the beginning of an injury, but then if it's definitely repetitive strain, consider rust tox if it's a really good fit with that limbering up, stiff on first getting up, but better on moving. Or if it's like a recurring repetitive strain, Ruta gravulans is another great remedy. Okay, finally, I just want to say Arnica is such a little miracle, except when it isn't. So lots of times I've had the experience and other people have had the experience that Arnica just seems to be so miraculous. The pain goes away, you feel so much better quickly. And then you expect that to happen next time. Every injury is different. Every person responds differently to an injury. Sometimes the injury is a little more serious, or it's a different part of the body that's injured. And then we definitely do need support. We need to know kind of what's going on. And so what I'm saying is sometimes you need to stick with the Arnica a little bit longer. Don't expect that miracle. And then if the symptom picture calls for another remedy, absolutely do switch to Bryonia, rust tox, or now I'm talking about Ruta. Okay, just so you know, if you can't figure it out yourself, like I couldn't, even though I'm a homeopath, when you're in pain, please reach out to a homeopathic practitioner. They can help you and make sure that you're back on your feet. And of course, always, if needed, go and get a diagnosis or go and get some physical work done. Now, Canadians for Homeopathy, just so you know, we are a volunteer nonprofit organization. I'm a volunteer, so we do totally depend on your donations and subscriptions. Basically, we're all about helping you use homeopathy at home and knowing when to go and see a practitioner. If you've enjoyed this answer to the question today on Ask Your Homeopath, please comment below. Please share it with others. And if you have a question, please ask it, and we'll for sure get to those questions later. If you would like to support us here at Canadians for Homeopathy, please do. We totally depend on your subscriptions and donations. As I said, for just $6 a month or $60 a year, you can help spread the love of homeopathy, and also you get a whole bunch of perks. So you get to see past videos and webinars that we've done. You get some discounts on courses and on some products. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video today. I've had a lot of fun, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for joining me.